On July 30th, 2022, at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas, the rematch between Amanda Nunes and Julianna Pena will take place. And not one of us is going to fucking be there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the UFC 277 official Morning Kombat pregame preview. That's Brian Campbell, Chuck Mindenhall, the man in the hat, and I'm Luke Thomas. Gentlemen!
I'll tell you one thing. This card may not be stacked for a pay-per-view and may not entertain you. This preview show will.
Why don't we tell everyone what you're drinking? Because it looks like it's got a lot.
They won't tell me what it is, okay? But I told them I wanted something very manly to echo the theme of the show, which is we don't pull no punches in these parts. We give it to you the real. We give it to you the raw. We give you real talk.
Beet juice. That's what it is.
Like men do.
That's Four Loko.
This is basically Four Loko.
You're drinking Four Loko.
It's basically Mangria. Thank you, Adam Carolla. It's something weird like that. Yeah, but
is that what he calls it? Mangria?
Yeah, but I think I could pull it off though, just the same.
What do you got there, Chuck?
This is an IPA, your favorite. I don't know which kind of IPA, but it is.
You don't even know what kind of IPA you're drinking?
They had two
You're
cans.
Like, they're all so
cans.
good. I don't give a fuck.
They had
which
two
one
cans, and I kind of combined them into this. So it's
well, I'm having water because we all know what happens when I have a few skinny molars.
Yeah, you turn into a pumpkin.
Oh, Jesus, what the fuck?
Guy can't handle his liquor.
Oh, you know what it is? It's sparkling water. I didn't even pay attention. I just
Yeah.
grabbed this one out of the fucking...
Well, it's great. It's apropos because you're sitting on the stain. Can the camera pan to the floor? No.
And it's not mine. BC fucking did this.
Our great rig team here who assembled this.
Look at Johnny on the spot with the camera. He didn't move a muscle over there, by the way.
This is true tailgating here, fellas.
Shout out to Drew, the new camera guy, zooming in. So this couch is unstable. I sat here, the drink went flying. So, Luke, you got to sleep in the stain. But I think it'll improve our content overall.
Oh, God, dude. Do you like sparkling water?
Yes.
Occasionally.
Makes me feel European.
Wasser mit Gas, which is how they say it in German. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it. I like flat water. I don't understand what the point is of sparkling water, but
just so you belch a little more.
I don't quite get
Chuck,
the joy.
You notice that no other platform gives you an MMA pay-per-view preview as real as we do with this show? I'm so glad to have you.
Boys. I think it's great. You know what I mean? I can come in here, you guys cuss, you spill, you spit, belch.
If Luke was drinking, he would hug you from behind and
all of it, man.
Yeah,
perfect.
Chuck, I did see you in Vegas.
We did see you.
Briefly.
Yeah.
Before I had my little...
No, I was there with you for an hour. You just think it was...
You were there an hour?
No, I'm kidding. I was probably there an hour.
You don't remember?
You mean in the building?
I was in the building.
Yeah.
I was among
Remember
your
we were trying to get them off to get the next segment? You're like, no, they could stay. Everybody.
Yeah, right when I picked up the mic, you guys brought out the wheel, so it was kind of
awkward.
Bad timing. You know what I mean?
Well, there'll be no wheel today.
Yes, all right.
So don't worry about that.
I like the wheel.
Let's talk about this. So this is a rare UFC 2 times in a month. They're going to have a pay-per-view. Now, the one we had on 276, obviously some of the fights worked out, some of them didn't, but it was a big, grand occasion. This one, Chuck, it's got a great main event, but the overall card, not that strong. Fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. I mean, there are a couple of bang for your buck fights on there. Anthony Smith, obviously, kicking off the card. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of good fights on it, but overall, you're right. I mean, I think that the central focus is going to be on the main and the co-main, but primarily the main event for this.
How big is this main event, BC? What do you think?
I think it is pretty big. I think it's bigger in terms of stakes, meaning, storyline than necessarily the attention it'll get. Now, to UFC's credit, they did put Pena and Nunes as coaches in The Ultimate Fighter. I haven't been watching. Luke and I typically don't watch that unless Kimbo or some female strawweights are involved.
It's been a while since Kimbo was on there.
Or, Rampage is tearing down doors.
I would rather get eaten by a pack of wild dogs than watch 5 seconds of a fighter.
The main event is great, and obviously probably take up the majority of the show. And although the co-main event has an interim title, and we can argue whether that's necessary, and it's going to be a great fight regardless, it doesn't have the sex factor, and it is missing a third sort of entity on the main card where you're like appointment viewing, right? Look, we just had a giant card in Long Island, an ABC show, which had some quasi pay-per-view feels to some of the matchmaking. Maybe they robbed from Peter, didn't reach back around to Paul, then the Nelk Boys got a loaded bag, and then here we are. You know what I mean?
What? What did you
He's
say?
right.
I don't
He's right.
understand what you said.
You got to keep up with me. Things move fast. You know what I'm saying?
Or just bizarrely. What I will say is this. I feel like, Chuck, tell me if you agree. I feel like the UFC, this is a great example of them turning lemons into lemonade. So let me tell you what I mean by this. They had a situation where Julianna Pena fights Amanda Nunes. For the most part, it was a shock to just about everybody. Mm-hmm. She wins. Julianna Pena becomes the new champion. And it sets off in motion that they were able to fill an Ultimate Fighter series as they became both coaches. Now they have another pay-per-view they can put behind it. I will say Amanda's in a fair amount of media. Julianna Pena's done every media she's been invited to. Listen, obviously the UFC kind of, whenever it's in boxing where it's a Golden Boy fighter versus a, you name it, a PBC fighter, such that happens, then there's a big contest between the promoters to see who gets the upper hand. The UFC has everyone here. But nevertheless, if you were going to script Amanda Nunes' defeat, you may not have scripted it the way that it happened, but the after effect, they've gotten a ton of mileage from it. Huh?
I agree 100%. I mean, Amanda Nunes had won 12 in a row. You know what I mean? Like, and she's a 2-division champion. I think I went back and watched that fight recently, the first fight, and the way it kind of goes down, there's an expectancy to the commentary where they're basically like waiting for Amanda Nunes to just finish it. And the first round goes her way. You get that second round where it's just shocking, the turn of events, and the way that they're reacting to it in real time, like it changed
slow
everything.
Implosion. You're just watching it build.
And I mean, all those types of events when you really expect somebody to walk through the other, and it doesn't happen that way. It always just lends itself to something big when they redo it. So I do think that you're right though, because the Tough franchise, I do not watch that either. I probably have not watched since Kimbo Slice. You were able to kind of plug them in. I don't think anybody really minded that because in some ways you're like, Julianna Pena hasn't been around the game as much. You know, she became a mom. She was gone for 2 years. She came back. She's had a few fights. They have a dynamic now. They can bounce off of Amanda Nunes. I thought that this has worked out very well.
It has.
And I think that, there's big time doubt in this one. This is one of those ones you're like, dude, I don't even know at this point who wins this fight. Going into the other one, I thought she was a live dog, but I certainly thought Amanda Nunes would win. Now you have a psychological factor.
The first fight, I've never been more confident to say why somebody's going to win. And obviously, Julianna, and I want to get into it about the whys and how she flipped the script in ways we never imagined. And now in the rematch, I have no freaking idea.
Yeah.
It's either going to go one, it has potential to go one side for both if some scenarios play together. The middle ground is probably a great fight where somebody comes out on top. But I've got a series of hard questions since that's what we do in this show. Ask uncomfortable questions, give, real in-depth, manly answers here. Chuck, first and foremost, is that the greatest upset and biggest upset in MMA history of the first fight? Does it top Rousey, Holm, Sarah, GSP? He won.
Man.
It doesn't top the magnitude.
I was going to say, certainly not the magnitude. Now, if you're really thinking of it in terms of, were you more shocked when you really think about, the actual competition? I still think that the Holm one, I don't know, maybe I bought into the Rousey. I'm just being honest. I know a lot of people in retrospect went back and they're like, oh, yeah, I knew that Holly Holm was a live dog.
That's the difference. And let me cut you off to say this. The difference is the Rousey Holm, okay, there were things that we didn't know then that we maybe should have known. Now we can do the math.
Yes.
With this fight, I'm still like, the math doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And the first round, like, how do you want to look at that first fight? The first round was all Amanda Nunes. Then all of a sudden she starts eating a jab, and it's like her whole tank siphoned. And then all of a sudden she's just getting beat. It was very, very weird fight. You don't see fights like that. It was almost existential watching Amanda Nunes realize suddenly that she's exhausted and she's in trouble. That was the weirdest thing. So in that respect, I think it was shocking. I don't know if I'd put it above the Holm one because the Holm one, I felt like everybody around the world was like, what the hell did we just watch?
I feel like it should be. Maybe it doesn't have the magnitude factor, but I feel like it should be the greatest upset of all time because Amanda was the damn goat. 12-fight winning streak, dominating everybody, had beaten everybody. And because Julianna hadn't shown even a hint of that submission which she had before that over Sarah McMahon, it wasn't right home stuff about. I mean, it was just sort of like she was somebody who we knew had talent, was lingering through injuries and an opportunity. And give her credit, when the moment happened, she was greater. She was as great as she needed to be. That was the spirit, the testament of her human will that won that fight. But at the same time, and by the way, she's also stepped into the champion role and just acted the part.
They roll her out at every paper.
She's a media superstar. But back to the fight, Luke, and the second of these hard questions I'm dialing up here, it was so improbable that I think you do have to look back and say, and I want to ask you, did Amanda Nunes lose that fight or did Julianna Pena win it?
Well,
how big was the implosion?
The second fight is going to tell us that, I feel like. This is the one that's going to tell us because the narrative from Amanda Nunes, from what I can tell, has been she left ATT. She has her own gym. She's living in her own gym.
Yeah,
this whole like recommitment, refocus. Let me take away the things that are inessential and then refocus on the ones that are. You would think, okay, well, if that's in play and she won the first round in that way that she did, and you're right, the win over Sarah McMahon, if you look at Pena's record, it's 2 finishes from the back to back like that, right? So The point I'm trying to make here is, if Amanda Nunes, if the issue really was that she didn't take her very seriously, that this was somewhat fluky, you would imagine with all those changes, that should be ironed out by the second fight. The problem could also be, though, that Amanda, that fire that she has potentially lost, cannot be reclaimed.
Right.
What, because she beat
that
the
happens
game?
a lot. That happens a lot with
Is that
Amanda.
because she beat the game of life? She got, you know what I mean? Happy
Maybe.
at home, financially so happy.
There's all kinds to say on that.
Listen,
I mean,
if I
honestly,
had to
there's a lot to say on
If
that.
I had to ask you, what other big name out there could she beat? Not could she keep a win streak alive, but what's another target she could have taken advantage of in terms of a big name that would have really meaningfully added to her resume that was an active fighter?
Third Valentina?
Right. That's
Maybe.
it.
That was
That's
probably
it.
it, yeah.
And in terms of bantamweights, nada. Nobody.
right.
Doesn't exist.
You're right.
And
That's why Pena got there right off one victory, and she's there, right?
right.
I mean, it was questionable that Julianna even got that, even though, as we established, she's lived up to those moments. So back to the implosion, if you want to call it that, it's still so damn shocking. Even when you factor in the change in camp, maybe overlooking the opponent. She had reason to overlook her, skill for skill. But we always believed that Julianna had a high ceiling if she could put it together. She hadn't shown it yet. When she stepped up twice, GDR, Valentina, she got stopped both times. So there wasn't reason to believe. But as much as Julianna won that because of the triumph of the human spirit, she took bombs and kept coming. It wasn't overly technically sound. This was more of a street fight in terms of how it played out.
Yeah. She turned it into
Amanda absolutely imploded. And you bring up the right question. Does that just mean this is the end? Meaning, you know, she hit her ceiling and maybe she didn't have as much to motivate her, and sometimes you can never reclaim that. That's why we're going to tune in. She's going to find that out. But watching her implode like that, even if there was an injury, even if she hadn't had the right camp, like you said, the announce team is just waiting for her to get it, for her to kick it in. I mean, let's be straight up and real. She borderline tapped to strikes. I know there was a choke attempt.
She wanted out at that
but that
point.
choke wasn't even in.
She was done.
Fatigue made her a coward, and that's what happens in this game. No, but you get what I'm saying.
She was done, though.
That was an extreme moment where one of the greatest fighters of all time.
It's very strange because she's had 5-round fights. I mean, and she's looked good through 5 rounds. It was a very strange thing. It was almost like an epiphany occurred because if you heard between the rounds, Pena's corner was like, hey, stop with the Kimura stuff. Go for the double. Go for the double. They're telling her something that doesn't even really happen until the end of that second round. But it's really the jab. That left hand, all of a sudden it's like, boom, she hits her with it, and she's like, boom, hits her with it again, and all of a sudden she's like, I've got something here. It was like an epiphany for her that it was working. Now, can that work again? Does it go down like that? It was fairly evident the way that fight turned when you watch it. I would have to think that Amanda Nunes is kind of going to have something for that this time. You know what I mean?
That's her worst night at the office, like times 1,000.
Oh, yeah, by far, man, by far. I have this theory, too, like, when you start to drag, like, so boxing being a very singular sport, like it's very will on will, you know this for so long. Like when you have people who start to drag somebody into their spotlight with them and share focus, Cowboy Cerrone with his kids, like just bringing his kids in, Brian Ortega bringing his girlfriend, becoming part of the story.
Coach Latore.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like all these weird things, like listen, like all these weird things. I feel like Amanda Nunes, you know, she's been very like, you know, she's got what's her face, her wife, Nina. She's got Nina, but then they have this kid. The focus has been very weird. I know it's just a strange thing, but I noticed this in combat sports. They start showing up in diminishing returns. It's almost like they start to fade the moment they bring other people from they're familiar with and close with into their spotlight. And she's done that. And it's just a weird theory, but I've noticed this with tons of fighters. Going back to Jason Kidd when he's blowing kisses too.
Yes.
That's right when he was like starts to decline, you know, in basketball. I feel like when people start to do this.
What's your working assessment of why that may be?
I really don't know, but I think you might be onto something when you say like, you know, how it's the GSP thing. Because when GSP lost to Sarah, it was like, okay, now I'm guarded against complacency. The rest of my career was paranoid, you know. I feel like you start to just feel like your world is impenetrable, you know, like you can just kind of like do what you want with the spotlight. You can do what you want, create whatever you want. And I think there's a delusion in play, you know, that starts to come into play or something. But I think the focus then changes over the course of time.
I think that's half of it, meaning that's true in a case because Rousey's end was almost a lot like Nunes' implosion this time around, meaning it's like, Rousey admitting just recently in an interview, I forgot who it was, where, she didn't want to hang on and keep fighting. Other people wanted it for her, so she was just kind of going through the motions. I felt like some of that came out for Amanda in this fight, where it's sort of like, maybe her camp was compromised. Maybe there was an injury, but her just like, I'll find my way in the fight and find my way through it and get it. That's half of it. But I think the other half, and you just asked him, why does it happen? I got the answer. You can't domesticate a lion, or in this case, a lioness.
That's really it. I mean,
who had the most, outside of somebody losing big, like, okay, Robbie Lawler getting knocked out by Woodley. Even though he showed some life after that, that was the turning point. That was the end where he kind of not got old, but went down a notch because of the mileage or what have you. Other people have had dramatic falls off the cliff from title runs. Henan Barao, some people say maybe you started related. I don't know. How about Johnny Hendricks? Remember the thing Johnny Hendricks would talk about in interviews? A couple fights after he lost his title, he was like, I'm training now, living at home, and sometimes like worrying if my wife can pick up the kids in time are things that are trumping my need to be so focused in the camp. I think part of that could have come into play with Amanda, where everything's kind of there. They got the house, they got the baby,
That's really the thing. I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a domestic thing that starts to take hold.
But it's not just
an
invincibility. That's half of it, meaning I've been so successful, I'm invincible, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. The other half is, am I lighting that fire anymore? Is there a reason to keep fighting when I made it? Very few people. Manny Pacquiao, you got to give him credit for all the success he's had financially, politically. He still fights like he's trying to avoid selling donuts on the sidewalk. No, seriously, he's selling cigarettes on the sidewalk.
When you come from a country where child homelessness is a real thing by themselves, it can inform your judgment. Let me meet you halfway. See what you think.
All right.
I don't think it's true that, and I know you're not making this argument explicitly, so I'm gonna enter it from a slightly different angle. Okay. I have definitely seen cases where fighters, male or female, who it was usually the case where they brought their families with them the whole time, but I have definitely seen cases where guys had families, or women too, and it did not derail them. It absolutely did not. But it is also true, in my experience, that there are a lot of cases, maybe 50-50, maybe some more less, I don't know, where having a family actually does make you less of a fighter. It actually does change your perspective. It actually does change your motivation in ways that the fighter may not even take account of in real time until after a series of events happen that force them to reflect on that. So I don't want to be the guy who's like, motherhood makes her less of a fighter. That's not necessarily true. It can actually elevate you depending on the person. But it should be noted that it is a dynamic catalyst for change, one direction or the other usually.
It is an interesting thing. That's all it is. Like, you notice it when people, like I saw it with Ortega, and then when they were kind of focusing on his girlfriend so much, and I'm like, is this one of those situations? Of course, I don't really know because the way that fight ended.
That's different because
I know. I get it. But I'm just saying when they're
both hot.
Yeah.
I'm an equal opportunity employer.
When the focus does that, it
drink more of your diabetes drink. How about that?
The other thing, there is, though, a legit thing, like when people are calling, Amanda Nunes, the GOAT, and like I think that's a tough thing to, when you have made it look so easy for so long, I think that you're on to something when you say, like, hey, who's her real challenge? Maybe she didn't take Pena that seriously. I don't know why she, faded that much in the second round if she was taking her seriously. You know what I mean? Like, how did that work? It's a really bizarre fight.
Yeah. I mean, luckily for Amanda, it's just one fight, one night. I mean, the only other implosion she had was her previous loss before that predated the 12-fight win streak when she was beating Katzengano and having success, and then fatigue just gave out. But that taught her. Right? And I think even the first win over Valentina, in which she faded in the third round, those two fights taught her, like, I've got to get to another level. Come the Valentina rematch, we learned that Nunes can get to another level.
How much do you really know about Pena, though? It's kind of weird, her career, the way it's went.
Yes.
Like, kind of.
Never joined a huge team.
Yeah. Remember the catastrophic knee injury? She was out for a long time, comes back successful, then she falters a couple of times. She's just weird. Even the Valentina Shevchenko fight that she had, she was controlling portions of that fight, like big portions of it, where she was getting in the clinch. Valentina was smart enough to time out whenever she'd bring up her knee, and she would trip her down and put her on the ground. But in the second round, she was kind of pummeling her on the ground, and then gets caught in the armbar. But I'm like, she was actually having plenty of success against Shevchenko. You think sometimes also that the general perception of Pena was too low heading into this fight. Like, we were not giving her enough credit.
We argued about that because let's give Luke credit. You didn't predict the upset, but you said, look, we got to stop just, being all or nothing here and saying Nunes is going to swallow her up. This could end up being a close fight. Pena has shown some things. I argued she hadn't shown it in a while. She was 2-2 in her last 4, getting stopped twice. There have been long stretches of inactivity, but I think you're right. the promise she showed at certain points in her early initial rise before the injuries and the setbacks. Remember, she was kind of being propped up as a potential Rousey opponent back then. It's that long ago. We didn't think that was possible. Almost like a bug. Like the big myth about Buster Douglas upsetting Tyson is, the history will tell you he was like a jobber off the side of the road. No, he was a somewhat respected journeyman level heavyweight, but only journeyman because he'd imploded a couple times. But he always had like the foundation of craft. And then he has the best night of his life under certain crazy circumstances. And
everybody's only focused on Tyson.
In Japan, no focus on him. His mom dies the week before. Like all these things came together for a perfect storm. Was this performance? We already know it was the worst night of Amanda's life and an implosion and all that. It also could be the perfect storm, best case scenario, fool's gold of Julianna Pena. Like, I don't know what the odds are heading into the rematch, and I'm excited to see them.
I'd like to look that up.
Yeah, my odds tell you right now, it's still Nunes by knockout.
All right.
It's still, like, in terms of what's your best bet,
this is an
that's your best bet.
That's an interesting conversation because history has shown that when somebody cedes their belt and they have the rematch, it's very difficult for the original champion to get it back.
This like when Figueiredo did against Moreno. Let's give him credit,
but that's one of the rare.
You guys want the odds?
Yes, give them to me.
Our friends at Caesar Sportsbook have Amanda Nunes. This is currently as the time of filming, so beware of that. Is a minus 300. Julianna Pena plus 240.
And you know what? As crazy as that sounds,
fluke.
But do you know what that tells you? That even though Pena maxed herself out on the worst night of Nunes' career, and let's not overlook it. Pena had to take bombs. She had to eat big shots and keep coming. The skill difference from what we've seen still seems to be vast. Because Pena didn't win this first fight on skill. She won it on will. What if Nunes can come back and get it back to a skill game? Then it goes back to what were your thoughts heading into the first fight?
Have you really done an analytical look at this, like this fight?
Yet.
Okay, because I was curious because just from the naked eye watching it, it's like it felt to me like Julianna Pena's punches in that first round, especially, were just these big looping, crazy, wild shots that they didn't look very UFC caliber. To be honest, it looked like she was wild.
The whole exchanges in the second half of that fight was the same thing.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, actually, when she started realizing the jab was working, it was like the game changer. And then she was coming over right-hand side with the right.
Looping.
Yeah. But then it was connecting because now you've got her on skates a little bit. But it was just, it's a bizarre thing. I think that line is probably too wide, but it's still, I would still favor Nunes. But I was trying to say, like, it's very difficult a lot of times, psychologically, mentally, whatever it is, like to go into and try to take your belt back because now there's some dynamic in play. This happens all the time. There's only a couple. I mean, George St. Pierre beating Matt Serra back in the day, like to reclaim it, but that was down the line from, after
Joanna
the upset.
came close against Rose in the rematch. Great fight, couldn't get it done.
It was Randy way back against Vitor, right? Wasn't that or was it Belfort? I'm trying to remember.
So he got his eye sliced one time, his eyelid, but then he got it. They fought again and he beat him. Yes.
So there are a couple of instances where it's happened.
Yeah.
Stipe and DC was a good one. Stipe and DC, like when he came back. So it does happen, but more often than not, the person who takes that belt holds on to it in the rematch. It's a
Look, let me spin something on you based on what we've just built there with the foundation of this chat. If implosion is not a factor in the rematch, meaning if you're Amanda Nunes, you're a real fighter and a real champion, you got to take to heart the embarrassment, everything that came with this loss. She's still a champion. She's still a great. No one's saying that. But she lost in a way that none of us could have guessed. So if I tell you in advance the rematch has no implosion or gassing out qualities to it, does Julianna Pena have a path to victory?
Sure.
Talk to me about that path, Luke. Take me on that path. Hand in hand.
Here's the thing. I share most of y'all's assessments that, some of what Pena was showing in that fight. She does have a very good ground game. I think she should be given her flowers for that. But certainly in the striking department, I think BC sort of worded it right. In the striking department, it was a little bit more of will than skill. No one was going to confuse her for Terrence Crawford in that moment, right? So that's pretty fair. But what I would say is, this is the thing I was kind of alluding to. There's the temptation to pick Nunes again. I'm a little bit like, I wouldn't in no way be surprised if she won. But to answer his question, she doesn't have to implode to also be unable to recapture the desire that could be gone. What you have to ask yourself is that loss a red flag about fixable problems or now about a new reality? And we don't simply know the answer to that. We have no way of knowing.
That's the whole subtext.
That's the whole subtext. So she could go in there and did she train hard? Yes. Does she want to win? Yes. but that fire that was under her and all of the circumstances heading into the Rousey fight, where remember when she beat Rousey, what did she do? She walked around the cage going, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like, I'll let everybody know what time it is now.
If she goes in there,
that person still
if she goes in there and tears apart Pena in the rematch, I mean, you could just be like, okay, literally, it becomes a fluky thing, right? Like, you're going to look at that first fight as a fluke. That's the way that she proves.
But, like, for example, what's a case where you could say that happened? Okay, you could say Sarah GSP, but it turned out that it wasn't all that fluky. Remember, they were supposed to fight. The fight got delayed. Sarah had all those extra rounds of sparring. And in the rematch, though, how did St. Pierre fight him? He took him down and kneed his to the body and ground pounded him.
Too.
At home in Montreal.
Yep.
Great crowd.
UFC 83.
Right. But this is the point. There was like a real clear difference. Is Amanda Nunes going to try and take Julianna Pena down? Maybe. But she's probably going to go back to what it was before, which you're like, okay, but that's overwhelming.
She's going to time her. She's going to counterpunch and time her.
Is that what you think?
That's what I think. You have to make Julianna Pena be the offensive lead, meaning make her shoot and try to find out early whether I'm going to be on my back or not. And Amanda's been fairly. Have people tried to shoot against Amanda to get inside the punches?
She is of late. She has had significantly better takedown defense.
I mean, GDR had moments where the fight got to the ground. Very few
she
do.
gassed in that one a little.
Right. So I want to make Julianna lead. I want to make her establish a jab. I want to. If she's throwing looping stuff, as we talked about, then Nunes is a very. I don't want to call her a great boxer in the boxer sense, but in terms of adaptability of using boxing and MMA at this level. I mean, it's not just the power, it's the precision too, right? She sets up shots good. She's got a very good jab. None of that seemed to be there in the first fight. So I want to make Pena have to win this. I want to say, okay, I'll come back and win this fight. Now, win it on your terms. Bring your terms to me, and I'll show you what I can do. Because as long as she's in the shape, and she certainly has reasons to be refocused,
it's weird.
She's got so much more finishing ability with her feet and hands than Pena's ever shown. Now, I don't want to discount Pena. I don't want to discount the improvements she made.
I mean, you're doing a lot of discount.
I'm giving you real talk. I mean, that's the point of this show, is putting your reputation on the line that maybe these people are watching going, fuck that guy. A factory town piece of shit.
That's me.
But I'm here to fire you the hell up. And my point is this. What gains to the game? Because Julianna Pena was better on that night than she had ever showed in the previous 4 fights in which she went 2-2. So what type of growth are we not looking at heading into this one? Can she put a pace on Amanda? Is that the way to go?
Here's what I think a little bit. Different fights. Maybe I'm okay. Am I overreaching by asking this? Like, what would be the common denominators between the win by Pena and the win by Zingano? Like a wrestler who kind of punches with intensity, not necessarily the best mechanics, but there's a certain kind of these wrestlers like they're out there trying to manhandle you. There's a certain kind of physicality.
Got to gas her.
Right. Yeah. Put that intensity on her. Because if you stand at range with her, okay, in this case that didn't really work out that well because of the jab, but in general, you stand at range with her like Shevchenko did in the rematch. That's a game Amanda can play. With GDR, she was able to go to the ground with him. Against Zingano, against Pena, there may not be that advantage there. So you would think, oh, but she has more power on the feet. But I just wonder if someone can kind of rough it up a little bit. Yeah. Is that something where you just put a will on her and then potentially that becomes a problem for her? Do you think that's a plausible theory at all?
Yeah, I do, actually. I mean, I
think it's got to be the only plausible theory at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
I mean, I think that's what makes it sort of fascinating. It's the reason it becomes a big event in my mind is because of this. There are so many questions that you're like, wait a minute, but did what we just watch, is that the reality? And then, to be honest, if Pena goes in there and catches her and starts like doing that again, it wouldn't be that surprising. It would be sort of like, oh man, she just has her number.
She has her number.
She has her number, and that happens all the time. It has that kind of feel to it, but it's just it's crazy because Amanda Nunes, where she was at, to drop 2 in a row to somebody like Julianna Pena would be pretty nutty, man. I mean, the first one's crazy, but to do it again.
I mean, this would be Julianna Pena telling the world and me specifically on this couch, even though, by the way, Julianna Pena, I love your fantastic interview. Love your spirit. This would be a way of her telling you, like, F off. She's going to have to. She made a big leap in that first fight. Obviously, I think it's the biggest upset in MMA history. Yeah. She's got to make almost a bigger leap this time around if she's going to beat an Amanda who's coming in refocused, presumably in the best shape. She's certainly not slowed down because of damage. Is Amanda a step slower than the one who won the title against Misha at 200? Probably. It's 6 years later, but she's still pretty much there.
BC, is there a boxing, not so much in the women's divisions per se, but is there a boxing equivalent where someone beat someone else? You could say Buster Douglas Tyson, but they never rematched. Then they had a rematch, and the person who rematched, who was widely expected to win the first one.
Perfect example.
Let me hear it.
One of the biggest upsets in sort of the last 20 years. You remember Ricardo Mayorga, who would
Yes, of course. The shit talker.
the Nicaraguan.
He said he was going to drink Oscar de la Hoya's
cigarettes.
wife's breast milk.
Yes. So he fights Vernon Forrest right after the late Vernon Forrest beats Shane Mosley twice, becomes pound for pound *1 in the world in some publications, is a tall, long welterweight. Al Heyman's first fighter that he had years before the launch of the PBC. And Mayorga goes in there in Temecula and they fight, and everyone's favoring Forrest to win. This could be kind of a showcase fight. And Mayorga lures him into a brawl, and he stops him in, I think, the second or third round. And it's one of the great upsets ever. After the fight, he's drinking out of a beer mug. Larry Merchant gives him a lit cigarette. He's smoking. He's doing the whole gig. Well, then they have a rematch. And you're like, okay, Forrest is going to right the wrong. Mayorga outboxes him and wins the rematch. And you're like, oh, okay, that didn't go to script. That's one of those rare. And
How do you explain that he could beat Mosley but not Mayorga?
I know it's sometimes it's styles make fights, but sometimes it's why MMA and boxing math don't work. It's why Ken Norton can almost look like he beat Ali twice. I know one time he kind of got screwed, and he broke Ali's jaw and beat him the first time, and just like some guys just have it against somebody else. If Pena wins this, I mean. Put some respect on her name. Soak that name in respect. I mean, light it on. Yes, she's going to have to earn it, because I do believe that Amanda's got enough left in the tank to come back and right that wrong. More of a GSP Sarah style than any of these other fights that we're comparing it to. Yes, I do agree with that. This is an uphill battle for me, skill for skill for Pena. She's going to have to show it on the ground if it gets there, where she could potentially have an advantage. But she's got to show it in a big way on the feet. I think by putting on a pace might be the only avenue. But here's the deal. Most people don't know this, Luke. When I was the hometown reporter in Naugatuck, in 2001, and Naughty High football had been getting on Thanksgiving Day, we've been getting our ass kicked.
For the Bedpan Gazette.
We've been getting our ass kicked by Ansonia and Stanford Steve from Sports Center. You know my guy right there. So, we had a chance that year. So I wrote a letter. And broken, written, some letters different sizes.
Send help, need money.
And it was like, you pansies, you're going to lose again. And I sent it to the Naugatuck High School football office. And then I drove to Ansonia and put it in the mailbox there so it had the right stamp. I never heard of it, but I'm sure at one point in practice, they opened it up one day and they read it to the team. And they were like, those motherfuckers, I am going. So if I'm Nina Nunes right now.
That is the saddest thing I think I've ever
That's hardcore.
I like that.
You don't understand.
I like that we have to speculate.
They put that in the paper shredder right away.
You don't understand something.
That is fun.
In '93, when I was a sophomore, we won the state title and we beat Ansonia. Shout out to Steve Kaufman. We beat you that year. There were grown men in the crowd crying. The same thing happened in '01. And by the way, after I wrote that letter, what happened on Thanksgiving? We beat them 14-13. And those are the only 2 wins we have in the last 30 years. But if I'm Nina Nunes, you know what I do? I call up Darren Ravel. I say, Darren, I need you to go back on your tweet spree. I need you to tweet out that she's not a star and she never will be, that she was, the fake go, and I would need her to do that, because Amanda needs somebody to tell the Lioness that, you're domesticated. You're sleeping in them silk sheets. We need Amanda, who used to sleep on the floor at MMA Masters. We need that one to come back.
That's a long way to get to a pretty good point.
If 70% of that woman comes back, this is a one-sided rematch. And I think you understand that. I think you know that to be true.
I think that's true.
But you're protecting BBLs, always.
Well,
okay.
If she says she's doing what
you're an awful person. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If she says that she's living at the gym and this sort of thing, you're like, all right, well, I feel like you're on the right track. I feel like
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for saying what needed to be said. By the way, you don't care about your own alma mater that hardcore. Some grown men will wear frat shirts on podcasts and stuff to represent their college frat. You wouldn't represent your
my high school,
Marietta High School, man.
I didn't peak in high school, buddy.
Either did I. But I have respect.
Close.
I have respect, though. No, I'm peaking right now.
The 90s, though.
Right now, Chuck, you would say
you're peaking right now, but that's your other highest.
Chuck, you've known me for 15 years, right? Right now, this is the best BC there ever was, right?
It's not saying much, but.
People don't know I used to be Chuck's editor for a short season that year.
Were you really?
Short season.
Yeah.
Our all-star team of writers: Chad Dundas, Chuck Mindenhall, Brett Okamoto, Josh Gross.
Wow.
Am I missing something?
A couple of bums in there, but there are good ones like me too. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
And it was, I was
a guy named Darius Ortiz.
He was the MMA editor. I was the backup MMA editor.
Yeah, he was like an editor as well.
I ended up succeeding him, and people forget that I was, the MMA editor at ESPN.
That is true, man.
2016, right in front page columns on Connor.
How did they have you behind the scenes? That's what
They didn't know.
That's what's the
it's like
a couple companies.
I'm like us with Julianna Pena. We didn't know what we had.
Once you got out from behind, man, we
didn't know what we had, and the triumph of the human spirit is me sitting in this chair right now.
Yeah, that is actually is. It's true.
I love Chuck. Don't you? Because Chuck's Q rating with the crowd, to be fair,
High.
so high. Higher than half of this Malka staff typically normally.
Oh, higher than 99% of them.
So high.
Anyway,
I just
Chuck,
don't have good opinions.
Chuck, what's it like being beloved? We don't get into this much.
I think I'd rather be polarizing. You know what I mean? I like Luke here. I feel like he gets both sides. That's kind of
Yeah,
what
look, you
isn't
do
it?
have a lot of people that just.
I mean, either they hate you or they love you. I feel like the love though is kind of
my old interns that I fired.
Yeah,
What are they going to do? They're all going to get pretty bitter. Neither here nor
it's balanced out.
neither here nor there. So,
What? You got a time? You got to be on track. We got to stay on track. We can't have fun.
I would like to have the conversation be remotely coherent. If that's
Okay, there we go. There you go.
But getting back to the main event itself, what are you expecting, Chuck? I mean, obviously it can go any number of directions, but what are you expecting?
So, in my gut of guts, I'm basically thinking that Nunes comes back and we see the first round played out over 5 or as long as it takes for her to get the job done.
Okay.
That's still what I think happens.
She fights from distance. It's a different fight.
Yeah. I think that, just in watching that fight, there was just a moment where it just seemed like it just kind of went haywire for her and she wasn't able to recover. I just think that she'll guard against that. She knows that jab. That second round, it tells you everything you need to know. Like, it's pretty evident what happened. I just think that she goes back to being who she was in that first round, and she's able to do that as long as she wants. I could see it being a one-sided fight. If it goes the other way, though, this is what's fun about the fight. It's like it won't be shocking like it was the first time, right? Because you just be like, she really does have Amanda Nunes' number. I just don't think so, though. I kind of lean towards it's not a fluke, but it was just like you said, a really bad night at the office where it got very existentially bad for her quickly, and then she loses.
What about the idea, BC, that like it's not that she has her number in particular, but that she has a particular way of, I guess it would be the same thing, a different way of saying it, but that she has a particular way of unlocking Amanda's weaknesses?
Well, I wonder, is there any hangover tied to this? Is there any hangover in the mental advantage that Juliana has of knowing I took your best stuff that you had that night, and you're the one that was down. You're the one that
because you
tapped.
can't say Amanda didn't land on her.
Yes.
It wasn't like Juliana won via lay and pray.
Like,
she
Juliana's-
took her best fucking punch that
did.
night.
Dude, let's give Juliana her flowers. She's tough as shit mentally. She has
Super
mentally.
tough.
She has been through it. Okay, if you really find out her backstory, she has fucking been through it. So I don't expect her to implode. So yeah, I needed Amanda to be, the Amanda of old. But here's the deal: is there a scenario in which Amanda's waiting for Juliana to take the lead? Juliana says, "I'll dance you out at this," and we see a Rose versus Whaley Part 2 type of bout play out. Is there any potential of that? I can't see both being okay with leaving it to chance like that, right?
I think someone's going to get finished. Pretty confident about that. Pretty confident.
Could be you right now. You okay right now?
Yeah, this dude. My earpiece was really fucking with me.
You're good.
No, I think I just don't see like that gutsy win that Amanda turned in to beat GDR, kind of the wrestling and clinching and slowing the fight down. That's not really on the table here because the weaknesses of GDR are not the weaknesses of Julianna Pena, and vice versa. Neither are the strengths. So you would imagine that you've already seen, listen, remember Juliana's face was like fucked up after that fight. She took a big ass, several big ass shots. She's either going to get her lights punched out on the feet or on the ground, or she's going to, conversely, Juliana's going to punch her lights out or choke her out. That's it. Or I guess submit her too, or some kind of
Bet the under.
limb extension. What I mean, that's it. I mean, I would of all the things I am confident about.
Yeah,
I am confident it doesn't see the judges. Very confident.
You like the minus 300? You think that's too much?
Dude, you know me, man. Like when bad shit starts happening in the fight game, a lot of other bad shit follows right behind it.
That is true.
And this is the thing. This sounds obvious, but you should think about it for a second. Someone said this to me once, and I'm going to change it a little bit to make it make sense. But it's like, dude, if you're a UFC champion, you need to expect two things. One, your championship reign is going to end, which I know is obvious, but you need to accept that. And two, it might happen sooner than you think.
Yeah.
It might happen way sooner than you think. And there's a reluctance to accept that.
So I'm still living on the same hangover gusto of the feelings I had coming into the first fight. That, sorry guys, fighter for fighter, this isn't the matchup you think it is. It's going to be one-sided. I'm still living on those. Oh no, she's still around. The Lioness is still coming through that door.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lioness could have her nails trimmed.
On her best night, I don't think there's a woman on earth who beats her.
No.
On her best night, there is not a person that exists.
She's tough as shit mentally too. That's why it was so surprising.
100%. But dude, like you go through seasons in your life where all of that can change, and they're hard to hold on to, and sometimes it's hard to recognize it in real time and all kinds of stuff.
They come fight night. I just want to see her walking out, focused, No Nina, no baby, no kid. I just want all that off screen.
Chuck, anti-family.
By the way, isn't that this is
low-key anti-family?
I want to see focus.
I know you're like, yo, fuck them kids. But this is the one good part about this matchup in terms of what. Because sometimes it's hard to know exactly what lesson to infer from a loss. But because Amanda is so good and because she has accomplished so much, if she loses again, yes, credit will go to Julianna. I want to be very clear about that. That is an enormous accomplishment. But I think it would also tell you that there was something, not so much about the skills of Amanda Nunes, but there was something about what's happening in her life that really impacted her capacity.
What happens to her if she loses? Let's just say she goes 0-2 against Pena.
She's still the featherweight champion.
Does it change the GOAT debate?
Gosh, that's a...
Because Scott Coker's out there beating that drum that Cyborg still has it.
I mean, look, I felt if anyone deserved a rematch that didn't get it, it was Demetrius Johnson after losing the rematch to Cejudo, and then he got traded away instantly. And it was Cyborg against Amanda, because Amanda, to her credit, found Cyborg's weakness, which is her willingness to brawl, lured her into that, and just had better stuff in that moment and knocked her out. Does it bring Cyborg back in the picture? I mean, Cyborg has had seasons where the level of competition has varied. You have to admit that, right? Based on just where the sport was at that time.
Yes.
But she's also evolved with those times. She's also gotten better. She's also very good as an older fighter, quote unquote, now, in terms of, being more efficient and all that. I don't know. I mean, Amanda still knocked out a very top form version of her. Does Amanda still stay? I mean, how close is this GOAT race right now? Between not only Amanda and Cyborg at 1 and 2, is there anyone else that deserves, like, should Valentina, even with the whole hum performance against Tyler Santos, should she also be at this table right now?
Yeah, sure. I think she's in the conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
I just think the way that march that Amanda Nunes had through Holm and Tate,
one Hall of Famer and legend,
and Rousey, it was just
and a lot of finishes.
Cyborg.
She has more finishes in bantamweight and women's bantamweight history than anybody.
I remember before the Holm fight, we were all kind of like, "Oh, this will be an interesting fight on the feet." Nope.
I know.
Amanda shut that shit up real fast.
Yo, she's like Kunitskaya. Nope. I'm a big fan of Maheta's marriage. It's a very good.
Dude, no one is more obsessed with the minutia of fighter romance. Fighter romance.
Tisha and Rocky just celebrated 6 years.
Did they really?
I'm not saying
right around the same time you and I celebrated 3. So
wow.
Yo, I'm definitely
They're doubling
the Tisha.
you up.
I'm definitely the Tisha in this relationship.
I don't even know what the fuck that means. Okay. Well, I guess I would. Yeah, I guess I'd be the Rocky.
You're distant, hard to reach. Hard to get to. Just stubborn and shit. I mean, just very.
All right.
There are times I really am the fifth wheel in this.
No. You're the lettuce on the burger. With the bun. Yeah, you're
the lettuce. That's like the least.
Yeah, but it's so healthy and nourishing, and people love this guy, right?
No, he's like the bacon. He's like the bacon.
If Julianna Pena wins,
we should move on to the other fights in the card. But yes, go ahead.
Really, because there's a lot of other topics to talk about to fill the show. Thank you for being so anal. But Luke,
have more of your diabetes drink.
Hey, at least I'm man enough to put this in my body.
Oh yeah, is that what you are?
Did you fill that up again?
Yeah, I saw it.
All right.
That tall boy.
Look,
you have.
Julianna Pena with the second win over Amanda Nunes. If she's going to be a star, she's going to have the chance to be. And she could talk and talk. She's the deal. How soon do you put her into a Valentina fight? I mean, how soon do you just say, what's the max week? What's the biggest fight?
The first fight's real fun if you go back and watch it, man. I mean,
it was. Boy, it's a great question. I hadn't even thought about that.
And you're trying to argue back that she was better than we remember in that fight, Pena. And that makes me intrigued to rewatch it.
Large portions of that fight. I don't know the last time if you just watched it on Fight Night, but like if you go back and watch it, she controls, I'd say 75% of that fight.
With the takedown, right? And then she
puts her on the fence a couple of times. But Shevchenko, you can see her waiting for that knee to come up where she's trying, and then she just trips her down a couple of times. That was where the offense was coming the other way, and then she catches her in the armbar in the second round late.
Because Tyler just.
But she was getting pummeled a little bit. She was getting beat up.
Santos just humanized and showed that if you have that wrestling style and if you're physically legit and you can stand in there,
I would say this: if you beat Amanda Nunes twice, and especially if she, to your point, I think it's absolutely right. It's undeniable. A lot of that first win is will over skill. But what if in the second fight it's a little bit more of a mix where some skill actually comes into play? You beat Amanda Nunes back to back.
I know.
You deserve a lot of respect heading into a Shevchenko rematch.
Especially if you do it in some different manner. I think that would speak volumes. If you're able to do it in some way where you're like, what? She did it again, but in a totally different way than we expected, that would speak volumes for her. Yeah.
Okay, connected to this argument, but the final topic on it, and I don't know if you care, but I do. Does Cyborg ever fight again in the UFC?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you're saying no chance?
I haven't given that 2 seconds of thought. No. That is absolutely never going to happen.
What's the earliest Kayla Harrison could fight in the UFC?
Oh, 2024 or 2025, something like that.
Is it? I don't even know what her
right.
contract is like.
So, look, I'm just trying to build. If Julianna Pena wins this, and she's got a chance to fight Valentina, you have a chance to make big fights. I'm trying to think of
fucking
who
earpiece
those
driving me
dance
nuts.
partners could be. It's the same conversation of who would be left for Amanda outside of a third
Yo,
Valentina
tell me what
fight.
they say in my ear, because this thing's
Yeah,
killing
they're
me.
not saying shit. I mean, look, if you're Amanda and you win this and you gain it back, and it's like, okay, the bump in the road, I fixed it.
right.
Who is
And
left
it could be like that, yes.
in both of your eyes must face in terms of just rounding out that legacy? Is there anyone left that's must?
I mean, I'd love
is
to
it Kayla? Do you have to wait
I
around
would,
for
I
her?
would love to see that, but at some point, if
I-
it's still going.
I mean, dude, I just think for those, I think that door's closed.
You do? You don't think Kayla could go 2 years to PFL, come right back and be a pay-per-view player?
I think Kayla to the UFC is very possible and open, but the idea of her fighting Amanda
When it matters
when
the
it
most.
matters is almost sure to not happen.
That's
unfortunately,
another thing that
you can get a late model version of it, though. Seriously, if Amanda, think about this.
I got late model versions of Chuck versus Vanderlei and some other ones. They don't do much.
I'm kind
for
of
me.
a late model version
they've got
myself.
such backstory.
Okay, but here's
You know,
the deal. When we talk about if Amanda loses, what does it do to the GOAT chip, whatever, she's still the featherweight champion. There's a scenario in which she still hangs on as the featherweight champion for as active as she's
Yeah,
willing
but
to be.
that title confers as much benefit as it's difficult to
What
get.
I'm saying is that makes a Kayla fight in a year and a half not impossible, okay?
Not impossible, certainly not. But I think if Amanda Nunes,
Yeah.
again, if Pena goes in there and wins, to Chuck's point, in a different way, where grappling is involved and she's looking really good, and you're like, God damn, she's kind of putting it on her. Even though Nunes is black belt in jiu-jitsu, like, you have to imagine in a year and a half, Kayla would be,
Yeah.
very capable of replicating something like that. So I guess we'll have to see. Okay, on your co-main, right? On your co-main, there are other fights on the card. They're not as
what they
good.
say.
They're not as good, but they are. This is actually a pretty good one. How about this one? Brandon Moreno, we thought was going to fight Devison Figueiredo. Didn't have
Fourth time.
for the fourth time, yes, because he's fought him back to back to. Well, I think there's one in between, but any case, coming off of a Devison Figueiredo fight, it's not going to happen. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But instead, it's Kai-Kara-France, CKB, fresh off a fucking house cleaning for the most part.
It's a fucking great fight.
Dude, this is a super sick fight. We'll talk about Figueiredo in just a moment, but I got to tell you, this is the best Kai-Kara-France has ever looked. I did not think Moreno looked bad in the third fight with Figgy. How much do you like this fight?
I like it from an action standpoint.
That's it?
No, I mean I like it in general, but the interim title thing is always a little weird. But
Yeah,
at the
it's a
same time-
war on the pretty girl's hot face. Where you're like, yeah, I'd take that girl downtown, but that thing's staring at me. That thing's got its own area code. You know what I mean?
Dude, you talk like I talked when I was 19. Like, that's what you do.
Get past that wart.
Yeah, now I'm like, my God, I must have been the world's biggest douchebag at 19. Holy fuck, my life.
Oh no, but it's a good fight. I do like the idea of, first of all, it is the first time Moreno's fought somebody other than Figueiredo since 2020. Like, it's been 3 fights in a row, so it'll be fun to see kind of how he's looking. And a guy who's like surging right now, a couple of big knockouts, for France. I like it, man. I just think it'll deliver. I feel like it's guaranteed to deliver. I hate saying that, but I feel like it's guaranteed to be a good fight.
Look, what has changed for KK France? Because he used to be a respected guy, won some, lost some, had really seemed to be figuring out. He's figured it out. So what the hell's the difference?
Yeah, a couple things. His game has gotten a little bit more well-rounded. So some of maybe he wasn't ever bad at wrestling, right? He was never bad at those, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. And I would also say, like, his disengagement from any kind, like, he just knows how to get in and out of grappling situations much more nimbly. Still on the floor, a Brandon Royval type is, like, jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu is going to give him problems, but his ability to engage and disengage has become much more scientific and more to the point. His striking was always good, but you're seeing him land much more cleanly these days. His timing. I feel like his timing has gotten really sharp.
Is he's of the CKB mold he's proving in terms of ability, but it's like when you have a brand, now you figure everyone that's coming out of this is going to have that one key intangible the same. It just so happens that Volkanovski right now and Adesanya are two of the smartest fighters we've ever seen, along with being two of the most technical. Do you think up to this point KK France is showing himself cerebrally to be sort of what that gym represents? Not everybody's going to be the same, right? You got Carlos Olberg, who's just probably slamming chicks in those DMs right now. He's got skills on
Dude, can you imagine his fucking DMs?
Yeah, I mean, it must be
like when you look like that and your job is that. And remember his last win, he like knocked out this dude in like the first round. Can you fucking imagine his DMs?
I mean, has France won you over mentally on that level?
Well, The Garbrandt fight was the one that did it for me because he refused to kind of engage in any kind of like gunfight with Garbrandt. He really picked his shots, and then he went in. He had the poise when he landed a big shot that kind of staggered him. He had this very good poise for the next 45-second sequence before he put him away. He just kind of walked him down. It was like, but he wasn't overly aggressive.
Different swagger. And
he's got it, the whole thing was, you could see it. You could see whatever he's got going on. It was very smart. His approach to that fight was very smart. He was poised, and then that's when I felt like he was probably going to be a title type of guy.
Yeah.
So, dude, his last win was over. Are you talking about the Askarov fight?
No, I was talking about the Garbrandt.
Oh, yeah, but the Askarov fight, that is a fight that the old Kara-France would have lost. Because that guy would have tied him up and not like necessarily beat his ass, but probably controlled the wrestling and grappling exchanges just enough to stay ahead, or maybe put a comfortable lead. And then Kara-France would have lost some kind of decision.
Was the Askarov slightly compromised? Like we found out after the fact, there was some type of injury or something that was slightly compromised.
Kara-France is healthy all the time. This is the
No,
fight
I'm just saying I want to see that again. I still think Askarov gets back there. He's the Zabit of 125, and I think you know that.
Yeah. He could be. I'm willing to entertain. I'm willing to entertain that theory. But either way, he would have lost that. And the point I'm trying to make is, it wasn't like he eked by in that fight. He fought extremely capably, very capably. You're asking about the improvements. It's that kind of shit. The shit that would have derailed him previously, because he's been hyped up since he was on the Ultimate. Who's we talking about with the Ultimate Fighter? Was it you, camera guy?
That's Drew, the camera guy, and that's Gabe.
His name is insignificant to me. He's a peasant. The point I'm trying to make is, we were talking about it in like season of the Ultimate Fighter. It was Long Island Luke, who was saying like, he really liked that season. Kara-France was brought in as this sort of oceanic champion at that time.
Probably because his dad's Australian. It all kind of
you know what? That fucking astroturfing over here. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, he's always had a little bit of that promise. He's been surrounded by greatness and couldn't break through, had nice wins, couldn't break through.
Sounds a lot like your career until now.
Dude, your understanding of my career is so bad, it's not even funny. Either way, he does finally break through with this Askarov fight and gets the title fight. I will tell you that if you'd asked me like 2 years ago who wins, Moreno or Kara-France, and I think most people still might pick Moreno. He was the previous champion. But now I think it is a very, very close fight. To your point, does he represent CKB in that way? Dude, Izzy and Volk are tough acts to follow.
Yeah,
I mean, like, you're asking a lot from a fighter. I don't know if he's those guys. I don't know.
If they're Glavin and Maddox, he's like John Smoltz.
Tom Avery. He's Tom. No, Smoltz is good. Steve Avery. Sorry, Steve Avery.
Your wheelhouse.
Steve Avery. I lived at Fulton County Stadium, bro. I saw the Braves play in Fulton County Stadium when I was a kid, before Turner Field and everything. He's Steve Avery, where he wasn't the aces, but on the right night, yeah, dude, he's striking out the side with like a quickness. Yeah, that's
I would have liked to have been like the fourth friend in David Justice's like nightclub pack in Atlanta. I mean, like the guy who holds the door for them and like makes sure they have enough bottles of water.
I heard who used to get busy in Atlanta when he was a pro athlete was Andrew Jones. I heard Andrew Jones used to tear it up down in Atlanta.
That's hilarious.
Do you know his kid?
Can you imagine what Deion Sanders did when he was playing for the Falcons and the Braves at the same time?
I don't watch baseball, but I saw this meme that shows you how old you are. The number 1 and 2 picks in the amateur draft were Matt Holliday's kid and Andrew Jones's kid.
Wow.
Oh, fuck me.
We're old. Yeah. That's what he's saying.
We are why are we talking? No one gives a fuck.
Look, I don't believe the interim should be in place. I do believe the fight is perfect. Is Moreno just like? But what went wrong for Moreno? Figueiredo.
I have a great answer for this. I have a great answer for this, dude. Sometimes the Henry Cejudo effect is a little oversold. He obviously is an enormously talented fighter, great champion in wrestling, great double champion in MMA. He's the real deal. But he can't make everybody something that they're not. He cannot guarantee wins. Nobody can. However, I think for Figueiredo, he did wonders for him. Not so much in did he make his jiu-jitsu better. That motherfucker's jiu-jitsu was amazing already. But what he did do was tighten up his decision-making big time. Yeah. When to do things, what to do, what's the right approach, how do we get the win, how do we advance position, when do we advance position, all that shit. And what he didn't do was, look at this fucking guy. Look at this fucking guy. Dude, you can't,
I missed it. What was going on there?
Dude, imagine you were like, I'm going to sign my career to do a show with an orangutan. That's
why you have to look at me during this? You know what I mean?
Dude, I think
I read that.
This guy hates intimacy so much, he doesn't even want you to look at him. He's like fucking Dan Snyder.
There's always rules.
Don't look at me, peasant!
All 3 ways have rules. No eye contact. I mean, come on.
Man. What was I even talking about? I don't even fucking remember. Oh, about the Henry Cejudo effect. So, dude, what he he did for Figueiredo was, if you watch that last fight, between the second fight and the third fight, what was the big difference? Figueiredo just did not make it a Moreno fight.
Yeah.
He didn't make it a scramble fest.
Yeah,
He didn't make it a
right.
slug fest. He didn't make it I go one, then you go one, then I go one, then you go one. He didn't make a trade. It didn't turn into like an offensive trade all the time. And as a consequence, Moreno had nothing to build off of, or at least not much to build off of, by virtue of some of the better choices Figgy was making. I give Henry Cejudo, and by the way,
Oh yeah, man.
shouts to our guy. You know him.
Who?
Captain America.
Oh, dude.
Eric.
Dude, I know he's eccentric.
Eric Albarracin.
But I fuck with Eric Albarracin.
He's great,
I
dude.
love that guy, man.
He's a fucking maniac.
Chuck, that guy's a maniac.
He would fit in this seat right
Yeah,
here. Like,
So he puts on. Like, listen, I love Coach Eric. If you're
Big,
watching
like,
this, you're great.
glasses.
But he shows up looking like a guy I don't understand. Right. He has clothes I don't understand. He says shit I don't understand.
Yes,
he would
facial
wear
expressions
that
I don't
Versace
understand.
robe that you were talking about.
He would wear it
that shit,
unironically.
you know.
Dude, you should have seen that. We saw him. He was sending us. I'll say this nicely. He was sending us WhatsApp messages when we were all at the Mayweather versus Paul fight.
Yo, he was drunk as shit. Captain Coach, you were drunk as a
And dude, you should have seen the glasses he had on. He has big ass glasses with these the chain was diamond studded. I'd never seen. It was like who's Calvin Ford is Gervante's trainer.
Yeah, who's the guy, the inspiration behind the character?
Yeah, but have you seen those big ass chains he has for the glasses?
Yes.
So dude, he just is this total weirdo. He puts on a vibe like he's a maniac, and I'm sure he is a maniac. He's also a fucking very good coach.
Oh, yeah.
And he is. The Pitbull brothers are not successful.
Really
like,
meticulous guy too.
Yeah.
Hey, dude,
He really
he is
is.
obsessive,
I know.
obsessive. And so I think that, those guys,
Yeah.
it's like Dwayne Lubbock at Team Alpha Male. It wouldn't work for everyone, but for the right kind of fighter and the right kind of scenario, it does wonders.
Start selling
Remember when
selling
Ann
that
Wolf-
peanut butter over the shelf? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking
He
about.
doesn't know. I know the Dwayne Ludwig peanut.
Yeah, I know this.
Oh, come on, I thought that was your
Do you
type of
know?
joke.
Remember when Ann Wolf, the former, the Hall of Fame now women's boxer, became a trainer for James Kirkland, and she had the like old school dog style. She would hang a heavy bag on the front of her truck, and she would drive it. She would drive it at him, so he'd have to like. There was just like sick things that she would do, and it made him like he was the perfect. He was wired perfectly for that to work with. It's not for everybody, but it could turn zeros into heroes. Luke, if you've
Big L.
Well, you can see the alcohol hit.
What's
You can see it finally settled.
all right here.
What's better for what's
BC,
the better?
I think it's time for the wheel. Yeah.
What's the better scenario though? Like, because obviously this is being a stand-in fight for the one that was supposed to happen. Like,
Yes.
what's the better scenario? That Moreno gets his fourth fight with Figueiredo.
Better
or
scenario for the UFC is that Moreno wins here,
France.
but Kai-Kara-France is just as good of a shot.
Better for who? Better for, because here's the thing. I don't know how true it is because I couldn't double verify it, but I did hear from someone pretty, who was kind of dialed in, that the pay-per-views in the Oceanic region for 276 were good. Like, were real good. Now, their numbers were never going to match American numbers because pay-per-view is just not the same kind of thing down there, but like for that market, it was pretty good. Can you imagine if you can throw in another fucking champion on top of that raging inferno?
Dude, the people at Timor-Leste, they'll be fired the hell up.
Timor where?
It's an island nation. Luke.
Oh, you said Timor, East Timor. I thought you were literally saying gibberish.
Timor-Leste and,
I thought you were, dude, I thought you were just saying word, like random.
No, look, there's
Well,
a
after
method.
his last statement, I could see where you're coming from.
Yeah, there is a method.
Forgive me for
madness.
doubting your geography capability. I'm sorry. But seriously, so you're asking better for who? If you're a Kiwi MMA fan and now you've got this one, even if it's interim, you know he's going to fight. Dude, that is a huge fucking thing.
Yeah.
I think what you're pointing at, what you're probably getting at, is Moreno was very popular with the American fans. The North American.
Well, also you want to build that Mexican fan base. You got a brawler champion to see him come back and have a chance to win it in a fourth fight against somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, are we concerned at all about long-term Figueiredo's ability to make this weight class? I know it's a recurring topic, but like, has that changed at all? I know Figueiredo now has Uriah Faber's got a different management team. Hopefully, he'll be getting the type of payment he deserves. But can he consistently make this? Because if he can make it, I mean, he's even at 34, dude. He can beat anybody any night. He's a freaking savage.
I think he could. What about you?
I haven't really been overly concerned about it. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I feel like he's maybe just got it more under control, but obviously it is a factor. I think
Go to the
Dude.
PI. That's what I tell him.
he's so like eccentric and bizarre. And the guy,
Figueiredo?
and he's got those guys around him. I feel like he could. I don't feel like he's fully tapped in terms of where he could go. And
Yeah, but if you look at his
stardom.
body, there's no more fat you can take off.
That is true, but I feel like obviously he's so good for the class. If he can stay there, I think he can. That's all I'm trying to say. I think he can. Stay.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. He can do women's hair. Seriously, if you've never seen his
yeah.
video,
I mean,
he could make a mean roll of sushi. He was a sushi chef.
So
And like I think he's worked on like manual labor on farms and shit like that too.
Dude, that win
that's a
he
very
had,
weird.
he won't get the love in this country. The English language barrier is a big part of it, but that's like Randy Couture-like, that win.
Which one?
The win that Figueiredo just had against Moreno.
Oh, yes.
The guy that just finished him in a one-sided fight, he comes back and finishes at 34 in the smallest weight class. Dude, that's like Randy Couture, Tim Sylvia shit. Seriously. If he'd be I don't know where he fits in Brazil, which has so many legends and always has a high-ranking pound-for-pound hierarchy of who the best and loved and celebrated is. I don't even know if he's on the radar in that level. But dude, like that was a win. That was a manly ass win.
I didn't expect it. I thought Moreno, because after the second fight, I was like, oh, Moreno is the better of these two now.
Absolutely. You thought, okay, there was a season. That first fight was a great fight draw, and now it's going to be the younger guy every time.
And also, like I've said this before, it's as a general rule, and of course there are exceptions, this being one of them. In a general rule, in an MMA trilogy, the person who wins the second typically wins the third.
Right.
And so I thought Moreno was going to go in there and just kind of coast. Nope.
Dude, do we see a fourth and fifth with them? I mean, what's the possibility here?
Fifth?
Fourth,
I mean, he's got to beat Kara-France, obviously, but they're going to see each other in some form again for a fourth time. There's no question. But
yeah, they'll see each other. I don't know about a fifth.
Could
I
it
don't know
birth
what would
a
have
fifth?
to happen in this next fight.
Yeah, I mean, first we got this one coming up. So, I mean, okay, BC, how seriously do you take KKF's chances?
I take him really serious, and it's not that I doubt.
Let me see those odds one more time.
Moreno's also human, and sometimes it does come down to momentum. That's why Moreno's got a lot to answer here, coming off of a loss of that nature, for sure. He's still young enough, and I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
But France is the surging piece of the two, and sometimes in fights that matters. Like, Luke, if all things are even, and the only potential difference is the momentum that France is riding, that could mean something if they go 5 rounds of high-speed, high-paced theater,
Our friends at Caesars, again, at the time of this recording, our friends at Caesars have Kara-France as a plus 170, Brandon Moreno minus 200.
Wow.
There are some other places that have him under minus 200, but it's mostly around there.
Okay.
Yo, KKF can win this, okay?
Oh, yeah.
KLF is going to rock you
How does he do it?
by decision.
Don't feel like he can out-wrestle Moreno. Could be wrong.
No, it's got to be
so. Or even
high speed boxing. It's got to be
I think
it's got to be what flyweights used to be all about. Just spark plugs, put them out there. Now they bang.
I think you gotta if you're Kara-France, I think your best bet is you gotta draw out reactions from Moreno and you gotta make him pay.
Yeah.
On the in between.
The 5-round thing, obviously.
I think you got to gas him though. You got to put that pace on.
Yeah, of course. You might level changing and even clinching and make him work, but you just don't want to find yourself in a scenario where you're losing an underhook battle and now you're getting pressed up against the fence. But
Figueiredo, you can watch his stamina degrade as the fight's happening. He puts so much into every strike that if you get him into high level,
but I mean Moreno. Like for Kara-France, like what is a realistic path against Moreno? I think you have to make him react and then catch him in the middle of those things, which he does have the capacity to do. But it's not easy.
In terms of action and their styles and everything, looking forward to this one more than the main event in terms of the actual fight itself, what it could present.
In terms of the actual fight, it's
it's a fight.
I think so too.
Yes, but I mean the questions that we asked about the main event are so much bigger.
Right. Yeah, it's 100%. Just in the action, yeah.
Yeah, the action should be pretty interesting on this one. We're going to skip a couple of these, BC. I do want to talk about your favorite fighter, who is legitimately one of my favorite fighters, but I say it ironically.
She retired.
Huh?
Jessica, I retired, okay?
OnlyFans still going strong.
Let her walk away on her own terms, please.
Was she the one and I saw a headline. It was like they were selling used socks on OnlyFans.
No, that's Felice Herrig. She's making a killing selling
Jessica's making a ton
foot
too,
picks and used socks. Making a killing.
So was I, though.
I mean,
dudes are the worst. Dudes are so gross.
Here we go, evil. Here we go.
I'm not going to clap. I'm not going to clap. BC, let's going to open the main card. I want to talk about it very quickly. Anthony Smith taking on Magomed Ankalaev. Anthony Smith,
that's a great
3-fight win streak, all 3 by finishes.
Friend of the program, Anthony Smith.
Friend of one half of the program, anyway.
Maybe 2/3.
Anthony Smith is Factory Town MMA approved.
He is kind of Factory Town MMA approved. But I got to say, and I'm sure Anthony Smith knows this because he's not a dumb guy,
that there's hammers in the closet and they're all made in Russia.
That fucking guy he has to fight is not a joke at all.
All right, is it in play that the winner of this fight, if done spectacularly, could cut the line and get the next title shot? Is that in play? I know it's crowded and congested, and there's different scenarios here in terms of where this might go. But is that in play? A lot of people think it's going to be Ankalaev.
It should be, since it's not definitive yet, like what's going to happen there.
I know that Yuri said he wants Glover again. I don't know if UFC automatically rewards that because they love Glover and they know it's going to be a great fight, right? It's going to be a freaking great fight, the rematch. Even if it's one-sided, it's going to be the kind of fight the UFC wants. Actually, you know what? The UFC really should run that back.
Which one?
The
Glover one.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they should
Okay.
run that back.
But you're asking, like, what's the real potential here? I don't think so. I don't think that someone could really skip the line. Of course, you never know. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
So the
yada,
winner of this
yada.
could face Jan.
Well, that is possible
Yes,
too, right?
that's also a real
Great-ass
possibility.
fight.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know when Rakic is coming back. I think he's still got some time to heal, so he's not really relevant in that sense right now. I think the winner. I mean, here's the thing: for Smith to win this would. You could argue not name value in terms of popularity because he beat Rashad, he beat Shogun, but in terms of like credibility
Right.
wins,
That's it.
this might be the most credible win if he gets it on his resume. Conversely, for someone like Ankalaev, who had a bit of a performance against Thiago Santos, I think beating a guy who's on a hot streak like Smith, who as improved as Smith is, who is as battle tested as Smith is,
In and out of the cage.
yes,
Life.
Truly,
Absolutely.
dude, that dude is tough
I
as
give credit
fucking
to those
nails.
people that persevere.
Some
man.
of us have always recognized his capacity for this kind of thing. Others have not.
You know, I'd like to invite him to the couch. Room service.
No,
God.
seriously, he'd be great.
And-
Oh, he'd be
Smith.
perfect. And
We talked to him when we were in. It made the documentary a little bit. Me and BC. How long did you talk to him in?
I didn't know
Vegas?
how he was going to field it because he could have come for the throne and I would have had to take the L, of course.
Yeah.
But he was like, I could be really mean to you right now and mad, for the shit you talk. And I'm like, all things considered,
hear him
you
say
got in
that.
the
Yeah.
way
100%.
of a.
I've tried to tell.
I used
He's
your
funny about that stuff,
situation
too, man.
to fuck Luke. The thing about Anthony Smith, he just got caught in the way. But that's fine. That doesn't mean what I mean about him. And
I
what
know. I've
feel
told
about
Anthony
him.
that like
Yeah.
when
I
BC
love
says
Anthony
what he's
Smith.
really trying to do is stick it to me, you should believe him.
I mean,
You should
he's
believe
called me
him.
out too, like just for doubting him against John Jones back in the day. I mean, he's like that though. You know what I mean? He's going to tell
You should keep receipts. I love it.
I love it.
No one wants to be in a situation where you say something stupid and then there's a receipt.
Yeah.
You get, embarrassed in public. Nobody wants to be there. Although it's our job to say stuff, honestly, by the way. The whole real talk,
you
like
gotta
Mendy,
do it.
like that's
You
our
gotta do it.
freaking
You gotta
job, okay? So
This is a tough one.
You should be stepping up to that. But I'm never afraid for any fighter to use some afterthought that we gave on a podcast as fuel. You should use it as fuel. You know what I mean?
Also, I'll take a fighter being mad and at least being direct about it versus the ones who are mad and then won't tell you what
I
the
know.
problem is.
Well, the reason
Which,
why-
by the way, there's a fair amount of.
And the reason why I think they should
Too many.
actually thank us for this is because we.
Okay, now you're getting-
No, okay. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean like let me abuse you and then you could.
They should all blow us
I
for
just mean,
dignifying them.
Look, that's the pulse of the moment. The pulse of the moment isn't always accurate, right?
Yeah, that's
you're,
right.
You're only graded on your most recent performance, so it is up to you to turn that around. But if you want to use the bullshit we say as fuel, go ahead. I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not mad if you're mad at me because that's what they pay me to do, Chuck.
But BC,
Yeah, Darren Ravel, you're pulling it
They
right
pay
now.
me to be an asshole.
BC, let's center this conversation then a little bit, which is to say, now that you have probably had to rethink a little bit, at least your position on Anthony Smith, how do you understand him as a fighter, and how do you understand his chances here?
He's very consistent. He's very well-rounded. He's very solid. He's not going to implode on you, okay? The key with him, in my eyes, in terms of the times I get critical with him, is does he have that plus side to his game? Is there something about his game that isn't just a tough out in every category? You're not going to expose him in one side for the most part, but does he also have that plus to come over the top and win? At a certain level, he does. He's been to this spot before, knocking on the door of a title shot. He's fought for the title before, and I always give him credit for how he handled that potential DQ against John Jones.
Oh, yeah, he could have taken that
Whether
belt.
anybody
Oh, yeah,
cares
man.
about the value in that, I saw his personal values come out in that, and I was like, that's a real sportsman right there. Kind of like the Michelle Waterson Gomez with the tap and Lemos kind of, like that was a moment to me. I'm like, be real in that
You like
moment.
that.
So,
Sportsmanship.
but Anthony Smith can fight on this level, and you're not going to take advantage of him. But what is going to be that evolution to his game, or maybe in this matchup, that opening where he can be better than that, where he can finish a guy or at this level? Because this is a tough fight for Anthony Smith. He has a chance to win. I don't know what the odds are. I think they should be respectful and close. But what has he not shown yet that maybe he can to get over this type of hump?
This is actually very familiar because he's almost patternistic the way he's kind of gone. He had 3-fight win streak. He runs into Thiago Santos. He has a 3-fight win streak. Gets the title shot. John Jones. He's on a 3-fight win streak. It's like the same thing again where he's putting it together. And I would say that this is the most surprising run because they're all finishes. He's looked very good. After that Glover beatdown, I was sort of like, maybe this is it for him. He's kind of put himself back in that position.
But
This
is
is
that
the biggest
fair
fight of his career in that way.
Chuck,
I feel
is that
like
fair
because,
criticism?
because he's at that point now where it's like if he doesn't get this done, it probably is time for him. He's got other gigs. He's very good at what he does.
And by the way, he is very good on TV.
Yeah, so it's like I feel like this will be his big moment, as big as the John Jones fight. It's as big for him because I feel like this is that test. He's always going against that guy who's a buzzsaw, but he never has gotten over that guy. I know he's beat some of the legends.
Is it fair to judge him for that, though? So as a fan, if you're an educated fan, whoever cares about what this value is it fair to look at Anthony Smith and have those reservations and say, although you've been here before, I don't know if I see it one more time in you. Like, is that fair, or has he shown us enough? He's consistent, but he's going to have to be great to beat Ankalaev, Luke. He's going to be great.
I don't think of it in those terms necessarily. I think of it, I will, and things like, the ability to rise to the occasion, these are intangibles, but they are real. They're just hard to pinpoint about when it's going to show up and when it's not. So I try to just have a much more of a baseline conversation around skills. I had said that earlier in this program, just a few minutes ago, that Ankalaev might be his most quality win. But to answer your question, let's circle back to that. What would you say are his two most quality wins? I would argue, not name value, I would argue the win over Volkan Oezdemir at the time in which he beat him, and more importantly, Gustafsson, right? Because how did he beat both of them? A lot of different ways are important, but mainly with grappling, particularly back control. You're asking what's a real way to get there. What's the one loss that Ankalaev has in UFC? It's Paul Craig. He got submitted.
Hail Mary at the end.
Now, granted. He was going into a situation, Paul Craig, we all know the bit, I'm the damsel in distress, coming to my guard, and then he snatches him up. He's sneaky.
That's how he gets women, too. I know it.
Probably. He's sneaky like that. That's not going to work. Smith is going to have to apply it all to him, to a guy who's going to be resisting it hardcore. And in that sense, Ankalaev probably is the favorite, and I understand and appreciate that. But you're asking for a real path to victory, dude. Anthony Smith's ground game and in particular his back control for a big man is some of the best in the division.
Okay, I want to love Anthony Smith. So is this the type of win where he starts to get, even though he's not as old as Glover, but Glover's sort of setting a new template for how to remain relative and elite and never really fall too far down, but also be in striking distance for a potential, 2-fight, 3-fight win streak to get a title shot. Anthony Smith's not young, but his game is still really consistent across the board. This would be like not a folk hero win. I mean, it's not that far apart in odds, but it would be like, damn, this guy's still evolving his game at this age and still putting it together. I'd have a lot of respect for him if he goes out there and has a way to win this fight on his own terms. I want to see it, Luke. I want to cheer for him because he is of that blue-collar scrap that I love and respect. Outside of just joking around with you, as a fan, I want to see him get this win. But there's people that are telling me that they think Ankalaev is the best in this division at the moment, right now. So we got to see it play out. But there's people that believe that, Luke.
Do you think, though, this would be his biggest victory?
I think it would be arguable.
Yeah.
I think it'd be arguable.
Because did he get labeled as a guy who was stopping older names for a while?
Yeah.
Like good fighters, not great ones.
Yeah.
Rashad at that.
I mean, a lot of these guys you were supposed to beat, probably, even though they had the name value. Like there are a lot of these guys, but this one, I mean, I feel like everybody's kind of counting.
To your point, how he came back from the Glover one.
Yeah.
How he came back emotionally from that loss.
Even I, as an admirer of Anthony Smith, even I after that fight, I was like, shit.
Yo, he's tough as shit. He's tough. But like all stupid bits aside, he's tough as shit.
But the reality is, like what BC I think is asking is, it's not easy to get a title shot. It's very difficult. Most fighters never do it. But you have seen a number of scenarios where someone in any weight class makes a push, they get a title shot, and then that's the only time they get a title shot. Right, but to get into that space, then fall out, and then kind of reinsert your space.
100%.
That is when you're like, there can be like, I feel like Dustin Poirier has achieved something like that, right? Okay, he couldn't beat Khabib.
How do you recreate yourself
or
over
Charles
and
right.
over again?
But that guy figured it out. He actually got back to that space, and that to me is like hugely commendable. I think Smith could do something very much like that with that here.
I think this victory would have that feeling. If he's able to get by a guy that everybody thinks he's going to lose to, I don't know the line, but I'm guessing he's a fairly big underdog. If he's able to do that, I feel like this would be that hurdle that we haven't seen him clear.
Yeah.
Where it would actually be like, okay, maybe he does have something to offer the title-like picture. Maybe he can win the title at this twilight moment of his career. You know what I mean? Especially if he finishes again, because that'd be 4 finishes in a row. That type of resurrection, we've seen a few of them over the years, but it would be.
And on the flip side,
you'd be lying though if you said you saw it coming.
If Ankalaev drops the hammer on the flip side, we're all going to go, okay, I've seen that spirit in him before, and now it's time to add him to that list of BC's hammers that are coming on. I mean, the guys.
He's definitely one.
You know this, from the time we started watching MMA, light heavyweight was the glamour division.
Oh, yeah.
And dude, sometimes titles, obviously when John Jones came around, the whole thing changed. And you had Couture had a little bit of a reign, and Chuck had a little bit of a reign. But in general, dude, that light heavyweight title gets passed around like a motherfucker, man.
Well, John had it on lockdown.
I'm saying once he had it, it was kind of
Before
over.
John, it was great. That was one of the most fun runs
That's exactly the motherfucking point I'm making.
That we are.
That's literally what I'm saying.
We are so in tune.
Okay, so anyway, I'm just pointing out, it could be that this is just we're back to that. Yuri wins one time, Ankalaev wins the next.
Okay, let me double down on that topic. To throw back a high court joke, this division like a year ago was no worse than third worst overall in the entire sport. Only women's bantam and feather were worse than it. Do you think that the rebuilding after the Jones era has now gotten to the point where we're seeing fruit where it's not as bad anymore? I mean, where do you rank this division?
It's funny because it's still some of the relics. You know, go over to Shara, and now we were talking about Anthony Smith.
Does the division have life now?
Yeah, I think that's where Ankalaev becomes a factor, right? Like guys like that, Yuri being who he is. I feel like there's enough new blood there to kind of give it that fresh coat. Because for the longest time, man, that division just felt like it was the same guy. It was John Jones and then like four guys who were like been in the division for 10 years. You know, they just didn't feel like real threats. I feel like you got good threats.
Yo, let me explain something to you about Brian Campbell. Here's what Brian Campbell will do. Brian Campbell will see a glass and be like, "Oh, is there dried blood in the bottom of this?" And then just pour water on top.
I mean, that's not fully true.
Dude, it doesn't matter what's in that cup. He will just pour water on top of it.
Does this shirt make me look fat, or is it just my choices?
But hold on, let's talk about Ankalaev, because let's say he wins, and I know that bringing this up in MMA, no one cares because everyone just you can just say racist shit in the sport. No one cares. You can
think about it.
So in the case of Ankalaev, I don't know if that's the case. I've heard nothing. But what I am pointing out is he does have a relationship with Ramzan Kadyrov. Mm-hmm. Okay, does the UFC get at all trepidatious about putting that guy forward?
Normally, I would
because
say,
of Disney. Disney doesn't lay the hammer down very often, but when they lay it down, they lay it fucking down.
Let me be the relay guy to get this question to you and say this.
All right.
In the past, if Luke would bring this up and be like, all right, dude, like I get at your core what you're saying is right, but like I just want to see the fights. Who gives a fuck? That's changed on the boxing side because of Daniel Kinahan, because of now Tyson Fury not being allowed to fly to the States, presumably his brother not being allowed to fight Jake Paul. Because of that factor and how law is stepping in to prevent certain fights from being made, should we care about this on the same equal level for MMA and the future of how it could affect UFC fighters?
We should. But
or is that being sensitive as shit and not, you know what I mean?
I mean, we should be caring about these things. I mean, we've been seeing this for a long time. A lot of fighters have been involved in different ways this way, and there's a very small minority of people raising this into public consciousness. And every now and again, even Dana's probably asked about this type of thing. Just nothing has happened. I do think that you're right, though. If there's a bigger spotlight or a bigger scrutiny on this type of thing, and it's coming from Disney or something like that, I could see that being a bit of a problem, man. I don't know.
Listen, here's
Disney shut Tai Chi Palace down. You know that shit at the end of the day.
I'm sure they did, and that's why they haven't gone back, because Disney was like, no fucking way are we going back there. But the truth
Dana owes them.
Okay, but this is the truth of from my vantage point. What is the should fans care or not care about Kadyrov? Here's my answer. They can decide that for themselves. Mm-hmm. I cannot decide that for them. What I do think I can do for them is give them the information to make a choice about it, right? I might have my opinion about what it is, and I have no idea. These guys, who knows what pressure they're under and their families being threatened? Who the fuck knows? No one really knows. So I don't know what the answer is either. I have a personal opinion about it, but I don't know what the answer is. But people ask, why are you even covering it? Dude, make your own call about it. Yeah. If you think that you don't care, then don't care about it. But the audience does deserve to know. Yes. I think that's where I can draw the line and say, I can't retreat more from that. You have a right to know about it. So
and I'd say 90% of the audience probably
doesn't care. And that's the choice that's made. But the people shouldn't stop talking about it or stop asking about it. You can make what choice you want to make. But if that's public knowledge about a public figure, there should be some scrutiny about that from the media, period.
Fight game going back generations to boxing. I mean, it's just been tied to so much darkness on the inside.
I understand.
Dude, if you dig up the roots of combat sports, it's all going to be sad. I mean, there's just a story in boxing about a promoter got caught under oath saying that they paid off to the WBA to get their fighters ranked. And it's like, that's just been going on forever, all the time.
Dude, listen.
But it's the same thing. There's a lot of Kinahans and Kadyrovs. I know those are extreme in this category, but there's a lot of others circling around there that are regularly doing business in the fight game today. And it's still the Wild West for a reason, Luke.
I understand. I accept that. We've talked about this privately a million times. I understand that, and I accept that, and I accept that I bear some complicity in that in doing business in this world. I understand it. The only thing I object to the most is like, why are you bringing this up? Because it's fucking public news about a public figure. Like, of course it matters. So that's my only grudge. Is that
Stir.
Yeah, shit stir. Who cares? You can decide not to
then
care.
let me put a bow on this Russian conversation. You see any holes yet in Ankalaev that have given you any pause, or is it really? Does he look to be the goods up to this point?
He's the goods. I mean, I've heard the people say that he threw that first fight, Hail Mary, 1 second left. Here's the clacks. Gives up that first one. Paul Craig, because he was such a big betting favorite, right? Like,
no,
so
Paul Craig just did the Paul Craig magic. Dude, Paul Craig is the best.
But that's the worst you could do.
His fucking game is amazing. No, he's so great.
I think he's the real deal. I had him, like, I guess, last year, whenever we were talking about this, pretty much bookmarked or dog-eared or whatever to become a champion at some point in this division. So I haven't changed. Nothing's changed there.
So here's a question for you, BC. He beats Thiago Santos, but it's not a lot. It's a lot of clinching. It's not a lot of throwing. It wasn't like Ankalaev.
Let my head bang. Bro.
So here's the thing. Up until that fight, I was like, dude, Ankalaev is absolutely unafraid of contact. Now, what some people said was he was blowing through people so easily he wanted a fight, not to be boring in that sense, but he wanted to go the full 5, and that was just kind of how he managed it because he thought he might get a title shot from it, right? How much of that fight do you think was so maybe there is some issues with like risk management?
Yeah, I mean,
or was it just a different explanation?
All right, here's the deal. There's got to be a flaw in there. All right, nobody's a perfect fighter across the board. Somebody's going to have. Sometimes that implosion spot is a deep well. Sometimes it's just a puddle. But like, I don't know. There's got to be something that's a little bit off that we're going to find when he finds somebody who's his equal in that he's not able to rise to the next level. Intangible wise, though, and that falls under that in terms of your game planning, your IQ. Dude, I just haven't seen enough to give me a legitimate fear. I mean, my love of Zabit survived his performance against Calvin Kattar in round 3.
You got to be bummed out about that retirement.
I am bummed out about it. If he wants to help the world heal, as a doctor, this guy's a hero. By the way, people are overblowing that 3rd round against Kattar. I mean, come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to overblow on the same ground. No, dude, Ankalaev.
Why are you the way you are?
I'm fantastically flawed. I will say though that Ankalaev, dude, it's like I'm in this mode where I'm just taking. You got Magomed in your name? Yes, you're in my pile of hammers.
Yes,
but they're all fucking hammers, dude. They're all hammers.
I know. I'm gonna rename my kid to Magomed, and she's just gonna beat the fuck out of kids in preschool. Mirab.
Devolish Tukey. There you go.
Yeah, Devolish Tukey. That's right. To answer the question from my vantage point, you can tell me if you disagree. I think Ankalaev is fully capable of beating anyone in that division.
I agree. 100%.
That's the only question that matters. Who can he beat? And the answer is probably all of them. Yeah. Probably all of them. But he has to prove it, of course.
Right.
You can't, just because it's capable in theory. Like, there's some guys you look at and you're like, he can't beat everyone.
He has that feel, though. It feels inevitable, like that he's going to be in those spots, So,
Chuck, tough question.
All right.
Does John Jones ever fight at 205 again?
No.
I don't think so.
Dude, this guy has spent all this time bulking.
Okay.
Fuck no.
Okay.
No.
So...
Does he ever fight?
Does he ever fight again?
So if Ankalaev's the real deal and we expect him to fight for the title, who would it be against? What's this timeline going to look like? This division it's pretty fun right now. It is. It's climbed from in the basement. It's now kind of matters again. So
finally, it's taken a while, man.
So I mean, who's gonna? I don't even know. Like that's the existential question in this topic. It's like I have no idea who's going to be the next 205 champ. Is Yuri building a run, or is that not sustainable with that style, Luke? I mean, I do think he can do better against Glover if that's the fight.
Dude, a guy who fights that tooth and nail is going to beat a lot of good guys, but that can't be a sustainable style.
I mean, like you said, it's just going to be a baton pass one to the next.
Is Ankalaev the perfect type of kryptonite? Should Prochazka end up being there if he gets to the title level?
Yeah. I think so, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. You didn't hesitate. Chuck didn't hesitate.
I see that your glasses are empty, so let's wrap this up a little bit.
Yo, why aren't you enjoying this, man? I feel like you're the automatic designated driver who's just like bringing the mood down. You know what I mean? It's like
I am the designated driver.
You kind of look like me at the live show right now, and I hate you for it.
Yeah. You're right. That was a very apt metaphor. Please let me finish driving this car.
Show, by the way.
Yes. 2 other fights quickly on that main card. Heavyweight. Derrick Lewis. This will be in Dallas, so he'll be relatively hometown. Taking on Sergei Pavlovich on a 3-fight win streak, all 3 by first-round stoppage.
Is that the Cavs guard?
Isn't that Dellavedova?
Sasha Pavlovich? Or, sorry, I'm like a... Yeah.
What do you think? You got big interest in this one?
Somebody should be knocked out, right? I think Derrick Lewis, 20 of his 24 fights have been finishes, and the other guy, all of his UFC fights finishes.
And he lost to Overeem badly.
It's just a perfect two slabs going at each other until one goes down.
I mean, here's the thing.
If this ends up getting looked at as a comeback fight for Derrick Lewis, and it kind of offers that potential, right? Like where you're like, okay, he's still Derrick Lewis. He's still knocking MFers out. Is there a fight that's capable of being made that you would like be fired up for Lewis? Or has that kind of run its course?
Damn, you don't even want to talk about this one. Shit. I mean, Aspinall, depending on how things go with Blades.
I mean, him and John Jones.
John Jones is another fun one. Sure, yeah.
That'd be fun.
There's a lot of Derrick Lewis
rematch with Tui.
You could do Francis too, depending on what happens with Francis. Tui, I wouldn't want to do Tui right again.
I mean, Francis Derrick Lewis 1 was a.
You could do a rematch with Volkov, right? Because he beat Volkov.
Yeah, I would like to see that actually.
But anyway, I don't have like a. I'll say this: if Lewis beats Pavlovich, I don't know that it would represent something new,
right,
for Derrick. But if he loses,
he's beat these kind of guys.
If you. Also, Pavlovich had a bad UFC debut, but he actually could be better than we think he is, right? Like Romanov has come out of nowhere, kind of I actually.
Do you think we look at Drazen Petrovic historically as better than he actually was, in sort of a reverse Kurt Cobain type deal situation, or maybe the same right on? Like, what was he going to escalate and become like the guy? I mean, he took it at Jordan in '93 before he died.
Could shoot.
He could shoot. Croatian sensation, right? Yeah. I mean, do you ever just let it go and just have fun?
Just welcome to
be
the
like
Brian
Tom
Campbell
Cruise in that movie, right? Not worth it.
Risky business?
Yeah, just say fuck it, dude, right?
Ding, ding, ding,
like, let's.
I thought you were going to say, well, I don't want to say the movie, the other Tom Cruise movie where he had to look after someone.
Eyes Wide Shut. Are you talking about
not that one.
Hansel's parties there with the? Yo, Chuck, if your wife was like, hey Chuck, I met a new couple at work, and they kind of want to like invite us to their friend circle, and it's cool, and you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll be a nice husband, and then you show up and it's a fucking Eyes Wide Shut party, would you tell us?
Would I tell you
that, like, because you're like, we've come too far, we're here, we got to take part, honey, whatever this entails.
Do you watch The Boys? Okay, well, I guess I can't make it.
So Chuck, you're in it. I mean, you've got a mask on. People's clothes are leaving. Things are happening. Like, do you tell us, or is that a secret that you and your wife take to the grave? I'm serious about this.
I'm serious about this.
I would tell you guys.
See,
okay,
it's justified.
Pretty honest.
Justified.
Has this happened?
No.
That's why people look. Dude, he's undefeated in the public's eye. That's why the people love him.
Honesty.
Right,
that's really what it comes down to.
Damn.
All right, the other fight on the
Chuck's
main card.
pure, man. Colorado.
The other fight on the main
I
card.
to be stuck in Eyes Wide Shut.
Right, the other fight on the main card, last but not least, very quickly, another flyweight contest. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Alex Perez.
Low key off camera, you were like, "Fuck that fight." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Flyweight's
I don't think I said
dude."
Fuck that fight, but it's not. It's my least favorite on the main card. I'll put it that way. But do you share the? It's not a bad fight by any stretch,
dude. It's a good fight. It's a good fight.
It's a fine fight, but it's like of all the ones I have rooting interest in some capacity.
Would you believe both guys are believing that no one's talking about their name right now in the larger elite flyweight
especially
picture?
Pantoja.
So they both are going to be hungry as shit, dude. Have we seen Perez?
Perez hasn't fought since.
Like,
I was going to say we haven't seen him since the title fight.
And he lost in 2020. It's been that long for him.
Dude, they are going to be so hungry. You're going to end up. This is going to be the fight of the night. And you're going to eat. You're going to eat. Shit.
I'm not in any way saying it's a bad fight. It's not a bad fight. But in terms of where I care about the Anthony Smith fight. Yeah. I care about the co-main and then the main. Those are that's why I led the show with him. So there you go.
Chuck, do you really believe he dunked in high school? Like, do you really like?
Pretty tall.
Yeah, but he was like the debate team captain.
Dunk, really?
Dude, I could do a running like.
With an actual basketball, not a
with an actual basketball.
All right. I do believe it.
I mean, he is a big human. I'll give him that. Is he an athlete? I don't know. He's rolled.
No. I'm very average. But I am tall.
You did beat me in a free throw contest once. No one will ever see it apparently, but you did. It
wasn't a very decorated contest. It's like Showtime was like, we want you guys to go play free throw contest. Like, okay, and then they take us to like literally the epicenter of urban blight.
Yeah. They had to edit out a few of my.
What was this? How did I miss this?
It never came out. It's just like the basement
playing
tapes.
in a baseball. Oh, sorry,
it's like Chinese democracy. I think you'll get that.
It's like
never came out.
The court was like someone had cut up milk crates, and you had to play on there wasn't pavement or anything like that. And then across the street there was this like abandoned fucking warehouse,
and there was two
broken out windows.
It was kind of like it didn't have straight up. A New Jack City vibe. It definitely had a New Jack City.
Dude, and there were people that were like driving by being like, what are y'all doing here? And we're like, oh, we're just playing basketball. And they were, dude, it was Sketchball City.
Joe, how cool was Nino in that movie? Wesley Snipes, right? Just he was the
pretty
man.
I haven't seen
And
that. in
that's
so
what
long.
you guys think of this Pantoja.
Yeah,
fight.
so this answers the question about the. You did all that shit talking. You don't have anything to say about the
Oh
fight.
man, that's hilarious.
You know, I love this game, the show, growing out with you. Because here's the thing. It's like, Luke, we would be having this conversation even if that guy wasn't sitting in
No,
that
we
chair
wouldn't.
right there.
You would tell me you didn't want to hang out. You would go back to your room. You would order Uber Eats, and then you would text me about the heartburn you got from the second
I
plate
mean, some of that story is very accurate. He wants me to be more physically intimate with him, but I have boundaries. I mean, like, what do you want from me?
You know what I want? Hey, Brian, you want to get dinner? Shut the fuck up. Don't ever talk to me. I'm like, okay.
Oh man,
Oh, we're
no
two
will
old
suffice.
bitches, right? I mean, we
A no
are
will
just,
suffice.
yeah.
it's an odd couple.
I don't think we should do this any longer. I think we should just end it
Chuck,
there.
you don't want to plug anything?
Not really. I hate doing that, but I will do it anyways because I would be in trouble.
He's like, yeah, the entire 115-pound division. I mean, Chuck, that's so unnecessary. That's ridiculous.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
I'll give you that one. Your other ones, I want you to know, all of your other ones sucked. You bombed on every single one. That was a hit. That was a hit.
That was pretty good.
That was a hit.
Ringer MMA show. Your boy Ariel Helwani and
Yo,
Pizza
I know
Carol.
that guy. I know that guy. Helwani.
So we do that show every Thursday and Saturday. Well, most Thursdays, but
Yo, what do you think of his double-breasted stew revolution?
yeah.
Did you see it? He did.
You're talking about the Paul
Paul and Raheem presser?
I mean, yo, Ariel Loki's doing big
See,
shit right now.
Rockman,
Shout out. But what about that suit game, Chuck?
Suit
Be
was,
honest.
Surprising. It was surprising.
It's bold. It's
Yeah.
very bold.
It jumped out. And realistically, come on. He's making predictions about the 2023 Knicks winning.
I mean, he has his own. I mean, didn't he wasn't he a fake Raptors fan when they won the championship? There's a lot I got to talk to Ariel.
Well,
about.
I've only
Take
known
note
him
for a while. He had take note. He was going with the Jazz.
The Jazz?
I don't know
Oh,
why.
no. He was friendly with some of the
I know,
some of the
I
folks who
know,
worked in
I
the
know.
organization. He is. I mean, listen. There's nothing worse than a Knicks fan who goes bing bong. I mean, they're the worst people on earth. Okay, but he is a diehard Knicks fan.
Yes.
He has always been a diehard Knicks fan as long as I've known him.
Yo, that's true. That's true. I'll give.
And he's been a diehard Knicks fan when a lot of New York wasn't. Let me tell you
That is
that.
a good point.
All right.
Yep.
Neither here nor there. That's Brian Campbell. That is the Iceman himself, Chuck Mindenhall, the man in the hat. Luke Thomas, this is your pregame preview. UFC 277. Enjoy the fights, bitches.
Yo, two of the toughest people from Connecticut on this couch right now, motherfuckers. Yeah.
Peace.